Okay. You may want to switch over to YouTube now at Ask Ivy if you prefer that atmosphere. All right. Here we go. We're going to give this a second here on YouTube to let everybody tune in. Make sure that alert went out. There we go. Looks like we're up and functioning. Welcome, YouTube. If you guys could please post, give me a thumbs up that you can hear me and see me all right. That would be really helpful before we go ahead and get started. There we go. Shauna, good to see you. All right, just waiting on that thumbs up that our tech is working. And Elaine, welcome. Jill, Mary, Chicken Mama, good to see everybody. And we got a thumbs up. Excellent. Thanks so much. So, like always, with these free mini classes, I do want to encourage you guys to post your questions and comments. I try to get to them throughout the curriculum if they fit in with what I'm speaking about. If they don't, I'm just going to push them all the way to the end. We do try to get to everybody. So Paul, my adorable producer, how are you, Paulie?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Paul will be taking those questions and comments and posting in the feed here if there are any suggested classes that could help you with some of this healing. I do want to ask everyone here on YouTube to give this video a thumbs up right now. Greatly appreciated. Want to encourage you guys to subscribe if you enjoy the free mini classes here. I also do a weekly show every Wednesday on TikTok and on YouTube called Ask Ivy, where I take your personal questions. And we have our Roots Revival Interfaith services here on YouTube as well. So feel free to subscribe if that sounds good to you. Donations are appreciated. You can hit that donation button to do so. And if you want to become a member, you can hit the join button to see the 3 different tiers of options for behind the scenes extras, extra curriculum, direct spirit messages, your monthly horoscope, all kinds of different things. So check that out also. Are we good to start? All right, very good. So welcome everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a Taino Arawak, a psychic medium, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy, where I train people internationally online in everything, ranging from psychic mediumship development to astrology, tarot, numerology, meditation, Reiki, paranormal issues, empathic development, you name it, we do it. We train children as well as adults. So I hope to see you at the Ivy League for full classes. And for the list of full classes, you can go to the website. The link is in the bio. What you've caught here tonight is one of my free mini classes. Since the pandemic hit, I've been putting on 1 to 2 per week. To see a full list of mini classes that we've accumulated here, you can hit the playlist here on YouTube at Ask Ivy to check them out. Today's free mini class is Over Responsibility and Survivor's Guilt. We are going to be talking about what it is, where it came from, and what you can do about it. Okay, now everything I'm speaking about here today and at all of my classes is based on my observation and research, offering readings and healings to people for over 25 years. So let's start with what is it? Okay, what exactly am I referring to when I speak on over responsibility and it being a toxic idea? Okay, so I'm talking about a chronic tendency to overstep boundaries with others while abandoning what's right. You're denying oneself, denying self-care, self-respect, and in many cases, enabling others, which is not really love at all. So, over responsibility in this way leads to negative karmic kickback. You may think you're a martyr. You may think that you're doing amazing things for everyone all the time. All I do is give and give and give, and no one ever gives back to me, and oh, woe is me, but I'm such a loving, caring giver. But in reality, you have ill health, mental health deterioration, prosperity dries up, relationships are toxic. There is negative karmic kickback to overgiving. So we have to be careful. A lot of people have the victim and martyrdom mentality, personality, if they are overgivers, if they take on this toxic over responsibility. But not everybody has that aspect of it. Some people suffer silently, and they actually don't think much of all the hard work they put out at all, or they may not even notice that they're doing it. Okay, when I think of over responsibility as a toxic habit, I see this a lot with my clients in bad marriages, where one person is essentially the parent. Instead of having a partnership, you've got one person parenting over the other spouse. Okay, so maybe maybe you have a husband who doesn't really take care of the kids. You have to tell him every single thing he needs to do with the kids, and even then, he doesn't safely follow through or thoroughly take care and hold up his end that he agreed to. Maybe you find that someone's irresponsible with money, or they can't hold a job. Maybe you find that your love partner is just constantly draining you. They never give anything back. They never help you carry the load. And a lot of people see this with just even things like housework. Are you with someone in a relationship that is parent to child instead of partnership? It's codependent or toxic in some way. Okay, so bad marriages. I also see clients doing this with untrustworthy friends. A lot of people have and maintain these friendships where they know the supposed friend was talking to other people who have harmed you. So if you have a friend who is still talking and socializing with people that have harmed you, if you feel that you can't count on them when you need them, if the relationship is all one-sided, it's basically you always listening, you always being the cornerstone, you always being available to help them. But where are they the rest of the time when you actually need them? This is a problem, and this would fall into untrustworthy friend category. Okay, I also see this with a lot of my clients in relation to enabling their children. They either helicopter over their children, they won't give them any space, they won't allow them to trip and fall and make their own mistakes. We see this with a lot of Karen activity, going and complaining and attacking teachers and, give my child another chance, it's never my child's fault. Or we see this with parents who won't discipline their children. And this is especially hard if you're in a marriage where you have one parent that won't discipline, who wants to be like a kid, and the other one who's the only disciplinarian. We're going to see major conflict from that in time. So we have to have follow through with our kids. We can't enable them to make poor choices because it's uncomfortable for us to have to parent. We also see this a lot with people who were raised in such a culture or family dynamic where they tolerate abusive family members, especially parents, but not exclusively parents. It's also aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings. So tolerating familial obligation is another category of this. And saying, well, that's my family, blood is thicker than water. Nope. It isn't. This can actually be the most toxic outlet, causing you to take over responsibility, over give, more so than any other one. I also see this with a lot of clients in regards to having a God or a hero complex. So they will take on things thinking that if they don't do it, who else will? This is a lot of people who seem to have good intentions, but say, they're always volunteering for something. They've always got way too much on their plate. And if somebody asks them to step in, take on their workload, to run something, they just don't even know how to say no. Even if they feel in their bones they should not accept another responsibility. It's sort of like, well, if I don't do it, who will? Okay, so the God complex, the hero complex. They don't know how to stay in their lane. And I see this with a lot of clients who do this with work. Workaholism. It is some type of odd loyalty to a boss or a company. I always find this one a little odd because they are rarely getting paid what they deserve. But they, for some reason, just don't leave. Okay, so we have to be very careful with work and to examine the root issue there. Why are we giving too much or over supporting a boss? Okay, this often falls into that category of God or hero complex. Well, if I leave, who will do it? Who cares? It's a job. Okay, so that's up to them. So we need to be very careful with that area because that also involves directly your finances, your prosperity, your karmic payout in regard to your money. Okay. So I want to talk also about survivor's guilt. All right. So what do I mean today when I talk about survivor's guilt? I'm talking about being unwilling to release a person to their own path. There are degrees of difficulty to this one. This one is a harder pill to swallow. So we're going to talk about a couple areas where I see this the most. Suicide. If you have a child, a family member, a parent, anyone in your close circle who committed suicide, please close that. When someone commits suicide, we have a lot of religious dogma, judgment, and myths about how that person failed, how that person is in hell, how that person just didn't love us or quit or just abandoned everything. And none of this is necessarily the case. I don't see any truth in that whatsoever from a mediumistic standpoint. So when we have the loss weighing upon us of someone who gave up, so to speak, okay, they chose to transfer, or even if it happened by accident, maybe they overdosed and you're not sure that they really intended to die, but it happened anyways. We can carry deep, deep in our hearts and in our souls this burden of wishing we had been able to rescue them. Okay. Another see this in that's difficult to swallow, okay, is times of war. People who are suffering from serving. Often we see this with people with PTSD. Okay, there is this obligation that they had, quite literally, they were trained for, to rescue other people, to prevent, their friends from passing away. And if they survive it and a friend didn't, that could be really hard to cope with. A lot of guilt. I think that these two are really in alignment with each other because wartime survivors and children of abuse who had lost or had to abandon siblings to it. Okay, so if you grew up in an abusive household and you were old enough to move away, or you ran away, or you had to watch your siblings deteriorate later, maybe they became drug addicts or alcoholics, they suffer with mental health issues, especially if you're the older sibling, or you felt in some way you were responsible to protect the other ones. That can weigh on you in the same way that surviving war does. Okay. I also see this a lot with people escaping cults. I don't think we talk about cults enough. I believe that the church is a cult. I believe that growing up in a narcissistic household with siblings ends up being a cult. I think that being raised in a family of racists is a cult. There are many, many different forms of cults that aren't looked at as much as we really should. And the process of entrapment and brainwashing that goes on in grooming you to stay leads to survivor's guilt in the decision to leave, or if you do actually leave later on, looking back at the process and who you left in that cult. I also see this with my clients in regards to any tragic death of a loved one. So if a loved one suffered horribly before their passing, it can be very, very difficult to let go of them, to believe that they have crossed into the light and that they are at peace, that their life goes on. We can just reel over and over and over again in our heads, asking, are they okay? Are they okay? And putting all of our attention and focus on that deceased loved one who is perfectly fine, while we're the ones who actually need their help and support. And that's always the message through and give. But that one's also really hard to let go of. This is especially for those of you who have been held responsible to caretake over your parents or an elder. And when all that pressure is put on you to do it right, sometimes we come to points where you're looking at their end of life care, or you need to relocate them for their safety, whatever it is. And there could be a lot of additional guilt there because your parent, your family member did not appreciate some of those changes later on in life. I see this with missing loved ones. When we look at the indigenous communities and how many women and girls go missing, when we look at our Native brothers and sisters and how many of those children were brought to the schools and now we're finding the bodies. When we have a family member or a friend, a loved one who turns toward drug and alcohol abuse and they got mixed up with the wrong crowd and then all of a sudden we can't find them. Whenever we have a situation where we don't know where they are, we don't know if they're living or deceased for sure. There's no peace. It's like an endless nightmare. You wake up every day to this nightmare over and over again. And that one can be extremely difficult to wrap your head around in regards to survivor's guilt, understanding and allowing that they have their own path as well. Okay, later on here, we're going to talk about how to let go, to let more healing in. All right, so the last category I really see this with, and this is probably the most frequent thing, is having a loved one who is suffering with addiction issues, alcoholism, some kind of mental illness. We can become absolutely obsessed with this person and rescuing them, often due to the greatest fear, which is that they end up in the first category I spoke of, which is suicide, or passing away from an overdose. So we panic and we can't. We have to stay centered at all times. Okay, we can't overstep our boundaries. So that's what it is. Okay, that's what I mean by over responsibility and survivor's guilt. And these are some of the most common categories I see occurring with both of these. Let's talk about where it came from. So we see this starting in our childhood upbringing, especially if we had neglective, abusive, or narcissistic parents. We see it in our cultures, the patriarchy, colonization, capitalism, and we see it in regards to trauma, which can happen at any point in life, mostly due to death of a loved one, some type of accident, a disease, the onset of PTSD, things of this nature. All right, so today, what we have time for in this mini class, I'll be focusing on the two most common areas that I see this happening with my clients. Where did it come from? I believe it came from these two areas. And then I want to talk about a third category that I really see popping up with people who have been holding that role of over responsibility for a little too long. Okay. So let's talk about narcissistic parenting, abusive parenting, or having a parent that's an addict or an alcoholic. Most common thing I see, okay, that these now adults went through the brainwashing process their entire lives. Now, this can look a lot like a child was groomed to deny every instinct that they naturally have, their intuition, their needs, their emotions, in order to serve the parent, to make the parent comfortable. Okay, so only the parent is allowed to have a mood, to have a need, to have an opinion, to have a bad day, to get all of their needs and wants met. Only the parent's allowed to do that. So the child is raised up only to serve them. So we negate those critical thinking skills. We negate our intuitive intelligence. We negate having any kind of emotion, which would be an inconvenience to the parent. And if there are siblings and other family members involved, it would create a rocking of the boat. And that's not allowed. So it gets stifled. A lot of people grow up only to recognize anger. There's nothing left. I also see this with the brainwashing system through the patriarchal and our capitalist culture. Don't think, just work. Don't ask for more. Be grateful with whatever garbage job you have. There are people worse off than you. At least it's a paycheck. Okay. Workaholism is honored. It's respected. The act of consuming and purchasing is sort of the highest form of happiness. All right. And we see this with the patriarchal system, where women are told to forget themselves. They are here to serve a man, to think about a man, that they're not a full person until they have a man, that they're, obligated to serve that system. It's just another form of a cult. Okay, so we really need to look back. Where do you fall in all of this? Has capitalism brainwashed you? Has the patriarchy brainwashed you? Was it your parents? Did you do some toxic parenting? What's the root of it? Okay, but ultimately, you got to serve that authority system, right? That's what it's all about. So as an adult, this would look like overgiving and responsibility over responsibility, but it's really just a mask. It's really fear of abandonment and fear of rejection from that system. So next time you have a tendency to do it, ask what it is that you're really doing it for. What are you trying to avoid? What are you afraid of? Take a deeper look. Now, I want to talk also about category number 2, and that is the abandoned or neglected child. So this was a disturbing video I actually just came across showing recordings. I'd never seen this one, of the 1965 European study on babies who were being emotionally deprived and neglected. I don't know if you guys ever saw this, but the baby would sit and they would take a healthy baby, and then they would take a baby who had been put in multiple homes, who had been basically abandoned, who was now living in an orphanage. And when they put the healthy baby who was receiving what it needed down in the high chair, and they would put colored blocks in front of that baby, the baby would automatically build and move the blocks and collect the blocks and chew on the blocks, and was discovering the task of engaging with these blocks. When they put the abandoned and neglected baby in the seat, put the blocks in front of him, all he did was look at the caretaker. Every single time the caretaker put down another block. He never even saw the block. He just fixated, hoping the caretaker would come back and that maybe that caretaker would give him a little love. So this is what happens to us. We become obsessed with finding a replacement for the caretaker we never had instead of focusing on our tasks in life. Self-development, building a career, finding happiness, inner joy, growth, travel, adventure, just accomplishing some basic things to make our world a better place. We instead develop that mindset that there needs to be some shining knight coming to save us. We believe that we're to be rescued and we can't heal or be whole until we find that person. Okay, so I think, again, you guys hear me say this all the time. This is how people who push twin flames make a fortune. Okay, so many of the people who want to believe that have issues with this. So we need to understand that it's not just about being rescued. What we also tend to do with that as adults, instead of focusing on our tasks, staying in our lane, setting healthy boundaries, minding our own damn business, what we do is we overgive. We take on more responsibility than we should. We're always there. To be up in somebody else's business or overreaching and stepping, because that is a hope that maybe if we do that, we will get the love from some caretaking outlets that we did not ever receive. All right, and category number 3 is the I got it syndrome. All right, so what this might look like for you is not accepting any help from anyone. A lot of people who do this can't identify emotions very well. They may not know themselves very well. They tend to be very detached in their relationships. I see this a lot with narcissistic or like alcoholic parents and people who came from a system where they were the caretaker or they were feeding the authority in some way. So when you get this attitude of, I got it, I don't need any help, it can become over responsibility for your own life. We don't know how to delegate. We don't know how to get healthy and balanced. We don't know how to let people in. And a lot of that just comes from proficiency, honestly. So it's sort of it could look like a noble quality. Oh, wow, you're really good at everything. Oh my God, you can multitask. And why is that you never seem down and out? You're so stable. You always go. I never see you cry or complain. Well, there could be a lot of private nervous breakdowns, going on, in a sense of hopelessness, for sure. I think this feeds a lot of depression and anxiety. And I see you guys giving the donations. Thank you very much for that. Also, post your questions and comments now. We are about to get into the how to fix it portion of the mini class, and then I'll be taking these questions and comments. In the, I got it syndrome, though, I wanted to bring up something that one of our members had posted, Paul. Was it Jill? She has I got it syndrome. What did she say?
For you.
Oh, is it in there for me?
Yeah, it's split it into 2. So if you want to pick the first one, I will adjust this.
All right, you guys can watch me try to work technology. It's in my feed?
Yeah.
Okay, look at this.
It's under your name.
Oh, it's under my name.
So skip the second.
I really don't know if I know how to use this. It's under my name. I don't see it. Oh, did you just do it?
Yeah.
Now years later?
Well, that's the second.
That's the second part? Oh, Jill. Okay. Okay. So we had to put it under my name because we transferred this from the members section here in YouTube. Okay. So Jill says, when my daughter was born, her dad stopped participating in our life. No work. No helping around the house, no helping adult at all. So I picked up the responsibilities of both mom and dad. Okay, is this now years later?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, years later, I find it a hard pattern to break. When someone asks what they can do to help me in any situation, it's automatically nothing, I got it. Okay. Okay, so I think I got them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's a great example of how, you know, and here again, this is a problem within the patriarchal system that we see with, you know, research that the unhappiest people in the world are married women and the happiest people in the world are married men. There's a reason for that, okay? So Jill's a great example of how this ended up coming to a head once she was embedded in the system and had children to care for. And it's not at all uncommon, but, you know, good for her for getting out. And that's what I'm talking about earlier here in the curriculum when I said bad marriages are the most common thing for me to see. And it usually goes exactly this way. And it absolutely leads to you feeling as though you don't want anybody else's help. And that can come from, you know, for a couple additional reasons. You don't want them to mess it up and make it worse for you. Sometimes accepting help from people is a bigger hassle than what it's worth, or you don't want to be let down. You don't want to even open yourself up to the possibility of going through something like that ever again. Okay. I'll use my own example too. I have that one, the I got it syndrome. So my biggest issue, because I grew up in an abusive and neglectful, narcissistic household, my biggest issue is asking for any kind of help or protection from other people. So I believe I have to fight all of my own battles. And working in this line of work, I often come under what I call attacks, almost like paranormal attacks, but they also come from everyone around me. And when I go through these systems of attack to prevent me from doing this work, it can sometimes last weeks or months, and it gets really brutal. And during that time, I often get tired and I need to rely on someone. But if I were to reach out to Paul and ask him to offer me that kind of support, bring that protection in, just even to listen to me vent, I will have nightmares about how he's disappointed in me or about how I'm vulnerable and I've been exposed. I will have, you know, a chronic state of anxiety from accepting any kind of help. But, you know, you got to train yourself. You have to get back in the swing of letting it in, even if it's for the first time, because we do need it. And I do believe we're heavily rewarded when we step out and do that. Okay. All right. So I do want to talk about what we can do to fix it. All right. So number one, you need to kill the self-defeatism attitude. People who say, oh, it's easier said than done. They already quit before they even got out of the gate, you know. Gun didn't even go off on the race. They're not even going to bother. They're going to take a nap. It's easier said than done. People say, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have that. I always say, well, you're not going to get it wishing. You're going to have to work at it. Here are the tools. And usually they don't want to pick up those tools. That's the reality, because they're self-defeatists. Or people will say, it's just too hard. I tried. I can't. Well, get up and try again. Get up and try again. Get up and try again. As long as you're here on earth, you have nothing else to do but to get up and try again. Number two, get comfortable being uncomfortable. In the process of identification and acceptance for what is going on, you need to be willing to be uncomfortable in those moments, especially where you have a trauma reaction, or maybe you sought therapy and it's coming up in therapy, or something in a relationship triggered it. And now you're realizing, oh, wow, you know, something is coming to the surface here. I need to identify it. I need to accept that this is a problem for me. Okay, so that's the first part. And therapy does help, having someone to walk you through it. And that is all about habit forming. Okay, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. But the third part that really ties in with number two is plan ahead. So once you've started to identify it, you've accepted it, you're working on it, you need to plan ahead. You need to know where your triggers are. You need to have a game plan to cope with those triggers and to release afterward. Don't just let it build and build and build and build and build. One trigger can lead to a downward spiral that leads to a whole life getting off track. No, we're going to get triggered. It's gonna happen. It's a guarantee. And you'll probably be triggered for the rest of your life in one way or another, and that's okay. It gets easier because you can identify them. You can plan ahead to avoid them. And we cleanse it out. We get rooted and grounded and we go at it again. So I'm going to call this today Release and Reboot. Understanding that healing is a lifelong process full of ups and downs, a lot like a roller coaster. There are many restarts and new levels of awareness. Try to embrace it and enjoy the ride. And the last thing I really want to say about this is for those of you that are dealing with one of these really difficult categories I brought up earlier with survivor's guilt, I think that instead of worry, you need to start using manifestation and law of attraction to work in your favor and to work in your loved one's favor. You have to transfer out of that place of fear and move that energy, alchemy, from negative to positive by visualizing and feeling what it is that you want to have happen, the healing that you and this other person deserve. And the more you do that, the more the universe will respond and the easier it will get for you. So try to keep it right there, understanding at all times, no matter how it feels, that is their path. They are not an extension of you. That is their journey. That is their tale to tell. Okay, so feed it with positivity, not negativity. Do we have questions or comments?
Yeah. One here from Shauna.
Okay, Shauna.
Says, what can we do for family that we see going back and forth for years, using, drinking, drugs, suicide, that might help them understand what they might need, but still isn't overstepping boundaries?
Okay, so Shauna wants to know what you could do for someone in the family who's abusing drugs and drinking, okay, to help them understand what they need, but not overstep boundaries. Well, in the 90s, I don't know if they still do it, but there was a big thing called an intervention. I don't know how successful they were, but you would basically do your own intervention. You know, you would allow this person to hear your truth and whatever helpful advice you have to give. And you, if they're not open to receiving it, can visualize and manifest that you're laying it at their feet, and energetically later on, if and when they're ready, that they can pick that up and use that. Maybe they'll reach out to you later. You just have to be careful. They're not reaching out to you to milk you dry, to con you into thinking, oh, I do need your help. I desperately want to know what it is. What were you talking about? And then your bank's drained and your purse is empty. You know, I mean, you have to be careful. But I think that saying it and then staying in your lane, which means you don't chase after them, you know, try to reach and follow up. You just stay put and hold your ground and allow them to come to you when they're ready, or to use it however they see fit, is an honest approach to take, because it can obviously help them, but it can also help you to release what you felt was your valid responsibility. You know, we do have a responsibility to help each other. And so if you could do that without enabling, then by all means, yeah. We have another one?
A lot of people really just thanking you for what you're saying, and, you know, a lot of the fire emojis.
Ah, good.
Yeah, a lot of people are, it's hitting the nail on the head, so they're echoing that. And Chicken Mama says, totally get used to being uncomfortable. Yep, it sucks being there, but regardless, we'll get through this.
Right. And the thing with, you know, and I'm always saying it, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable all the time in different situations. It is the only route to growth. And like Chicken Mama said, you know, yeah, it sucks, but, you know, you get used to it. It's sort of like you build up a resistance you become more and more numb to it until you eventually don't even notice that you're uncomfortable. And when I spoke earlier about planning ahead, that can help a lot. So you're not like blindsided by the discomfort. You're like, oh, wow, what a shock. This is super awkward, you know, and this is going to be really bad for a minute. Yeah, well, at least you knew ahead of time. And it's almost like it just eliminates like 50% of it. It's not as bad. It's really hard when things sneak up on us. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Well, I'm so glad you guys tuned in for this. I hope it helped. Feel free to continue to post questions or comments. Your donations were very much appreciated. Please, everyone, give this a thumbs up. For those of you on TikTok who want to see the rest of the classes, go to YouTube here at Ask Ivy and hit the playlist to watch them all. And if you guys want to become a member, hit the join button to see the 3 different tiers. Next week, we have a free mini class, but it is going to be a live interactive. A replay of an old class. Which one is that?
Still small voice.
The still small voice. How to know when you're hearing from your intuition or from spirit instead of it being your own imagination or your thinking, you know, or your wishful thinking even. So tune in for that class. And we also have the following week, are you a psychic, a medium, or an empath? And that's where I tell you what intuitive abilities you have. So that's very exciting. That's like our all-time like highest hitting, I think, live show that we do, right?
It is.
Super fun. All right, guys. So if you're wondering, I will see you then for that. Thanks so much, Polly.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Spirit. Have a good night, everyone.